Now, Republicans have a new plan to rig the 2020 census, and the Commerce Secretary is right in the middle of that. Now, here's the thing. Now, the census, of course, you guys know, it's conducted about every 10 years by the Commerce Department, of which, of course, Wilbur Ross heads. Now, what it does is that, among other things, it basically determines how much representation each state has in the House of Representatives. So you want to get an accurate count of how many people are there so that you can allocate the correct number of representatives for each state. Now, what the Republicans are trying to do is they're basically trying to make it so that the less, or I should say the more populous states, for example, California, New York, and now Texas, actually have less representation than the smaller states. Well, now that's interesting. How are they doing that? Well, apparently they have added a citizenship question. Now, look, on the surface, citizenship question, are you an American citizen? Well, most people don't give it another thought because, yeah, they're American citizens, right? So it seems really innocuous. However, according to several studies, it will almost certainly lead, according to the Daily Beast, to under-participation by communities of color, especially the Latino community. Now, as a result, some of these states will have less representation in the House of Representatives than they otherwise should have. And also, another piece of important data here from this, or another implication, is that they will actually also get less money from the federal government. So, less federal money for programs, and also less representation. Not good. Now, of course, that impacts California, New York, and Texas. Now, basically, they're calling this another tactic of voter suppression. Now, Secretary Ross, of course, will be running the census, assuming he is still there as head of the Commerce Department. And the reason that I say that is because of what he did in order to get the citizenship question put on the census in the first place. Now, Secretary Ross had approved the question on March 26th, but now there are 6 different lawsuits over the change. One of them is actually headed to the Supreme Court, and which will likely be Justice Brett Kavanaugh's first politically contentious case. Oh, wonderful. Here we go. So now we have Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, who's going to make this very important decision. Wonderful. Great. Now, they added this question, right? And there are experts there that are saying this will cost blue states representation. Well, so far, great news for Republicans, right? Now, why do I say that? It's because they don't want Latinos voting. They don't want Latinos represented. This is the point. That's the whole reason to put the question on there. However, this could also bring about, ironically, the end of Wilbur Ross as Commerce Secretary. Now, in March, and this is why, Secretary Ross testified under oath that the Department of Justice asked him to make the change in a December 2017 letter so that they could better enforce the Voting Rights Act. Well, okay. Now, here's the thing, right? So the Voting Rights Act is supposed to be a way to protect the votes for people who are already unrepresented, minorities, right? People, black people, Latinos, and other minorities in the country. Now, Voting Rights Act has a lot of different sections. Now, a couple of years ago, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was actually stripped out by the Supreme Court. Now, basically, what that provision said is, look, in places where you've traditionally had massive voting restrictions against a segment of the population, there will be extra federal safeguards. We will be watching your elections. There will be oversight, and there will be certain things that you will not be able to do. Now, since that's gone, we've seen a lot of states put in measures of voter suppression. You know, in the South, in Georgia, for example, voter purges, things like voter ID that are now being put into law and now into practice as well. Well, that's stifling the vote. That's making it so that people who are, you know, minorities do not make it to the polls. And that's part of the Republican plan. So that's the voting. That's just Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, right? Now, it's kind of ironic that this guy is using, oh no, I want to protect the Voting Rights Act. And that's why I'm doing this citizenship question. No, that's not what it's about at all. Survey says that's a fucking lie. In fact, emails uncovered in one of the lawsuits reveal that he was less than truthful about this. He had requested the DOJ send the letter to justify the policy change that basically he'd already decided that he was going to make anyway. Hey, Department of Justice, I want to make this change to the census. I want to add a citizenship question, which is going to disenfranchise Latinos. But I need justification. Can you send me a letter? This is like this is a bit like the Rod Rosenstein letter for, firing James Comey. Hey, I need justification to do something that I want to do anyway. So why don't you send it to me? Now, not only that, but Ross also lied under oath whether he talked with presidential advisors Steve Bannon and Chris Kobach. Now, Ross had testified, no, I never talked to those guys. Chris who? What? No, Steve what? No, I don't know that guy. Bannon? Barely know him. Barely know him. No, he actually lied about that as well. He had actually discussed the issue with them in the spring of 2017, and that Kobach had proposed the specific language for the citizenship question. Now, you guys know Kobach, right? Chris Kobach. He should be one of the most famous Republicans for what he has attempted to do to destroy people's ability to vote. In Kansas, when he was Secretary of State, he suspended more than 36,000 Kansas voters. Now, of course, he has been outdone by Kemp in Georgia, that so far has frozen about 53,000 voter registrations. So Kemp definitely trying to outdo Kobach in voter suppression. And this is, by the way, it's a couple of weeks before a midterm. So they are all taking after Kobach. Now, of course, of those 36,000 suppressed in Kansas, obviously most of them were people of color or people who were poor, right? Now, he was unable to prove any cases of voter fraud in a federal lawsuit, and then went to Trump's Voter Fraud Commission, which disbanded before finding a single instance of fraud. Nonetheless, Kobach is a premier of trying to spread the voter fraud myth, and now is actually running for the governor of Kansas. Now, when he won, there was some oddness. There was actually some sort of outage or a glitch in the machine in the vote count. Now, when that glitch happened, Kobach was behind in the polls or in the voting. After the glitch was fixed, suddenly Kobach was way ahead. Now, did his Republican candidate or competition or the person he was running against say anything? No. They never say anything. I think for one, they consider it rude to challenge election results. And two, because, look, if anybody knows how to steal an election, it's a Republican and it's Kobach. So if you call that out, well then, basically, you point out how there are, it might start an investigation, and that might actually point out how they actually can steal these elections, and they really don't want to do that. So that's the reality of it. Now, Ross even lied about the fact-finding meetings he held in early 2018 with civil rights and community organizations about this change. So here you have Wilbur Ross lying under oath. Now, I don't know about you, but somebody like me, if I lied under oath, I'd get in big trouble. Oh, but of course, we're dealing with people that are in positions of power. So, of course, they're not going to have anything happen to them, which is unfortunate. And look, this is actually getting very, very little coverage too, thanks to the circus around Donald Trump with the consistent carnival barking and, you know, outrageous headlines and tweets. Stuff like this that has real impacts ends up getting lost in between the cracks. So that's why it's important to actually talk about this. This is what they're trying to do for 2020. This is how they're trying to basically scare minorities into, you know, not taking part in the census that is supposed to accurately reflect how many people are actually living in a certain area. So this is their way to try to starve blue states of revenue and reduce their power in the House of Representatives while increasing Republican power. It's a very blatant plan. It's in your face. And, well, we got to do something about it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.